Meeting back to order, and so we need a motion to come back to order.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thanks. So we're on 7C, implementation of Northeast Comox Stormwater Management Plan, first and second reading.
Second.
Well, any questions on that? Councillor Minions?
No, sorry.
Oh, you don't? Okay. Oh, boy, we're gonna have this long meeting done in no time. Okay, so we had a first and second, no comments or questions, all in favor? First, yeah, sorry, yeah. And number two, that having consideration of Town of Comox May 20 Housing Needs Report in summary form, the Comox Strathcona Waste Management 2012 solid, okay,
Second.
Thank you. And any questions or comments on that? And I'm not, oh, there's Pat, okay, I can just see Pat. So all in favor? All right, that's carried, yeah. Okay,
Second.
any questions on that? All in favor? Pat, okay, gotcha, Pat. Thank you. All right, so there we go. We'll move on to D. That's the OCP and rezoning application, OCP RZ 20-5. It's development permit application, DP 20-9. That's at 1135 Terra Road. In accordance with the section 475 Local Government Act, so we got two parts here. Notice of proposed OCP amendment has contained in attachment 1. Let me just, okay, so yeah, so as it contained in attachment 1 of the July 14, 2021 planning introductory report, be placed in the town's bulletin, website, Facebook, Twitter, until replaced by notice of public hearing.
Second.
All right, so anyone in favor? Oh, yes. Sorry, I'm still in holiday mode here. Yeah, yes, so number one, so move it second, so for discussion. I think I just gave Kathy a heart attack there. Watching. Yeah, Councillor Swift, go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to address, I know some of you have had contact with residents, both for and against this proposal, and I did want to address the issue of conflict of interest that I stepped away from the table when the last time an application in this development came to the fore. And the reason was because I was very good friends with one of the people, and they were in opposition, and I felt at that time, I felt the applicant would not have felt she had a fair hearing if I remained at the table. I understand it didn't technically qualify as a conflict of interest, but in the interest of giving the applicant the fairest shake, I thought it would be best if I wasn't there. So I still have a friendship in the area, and I intend to remain at the table. The last time this came, it didn't matter whether I'd been there or not. It was defeated 5-1. So me being there wouldn't have made any difference in the way the votes went down. But I intend to stay at the table. I have no financial interest in this, but I'm not in favor of supporting this application. As I said before, we can't get caught up in the story that the applicant has. But I do agree with many of the points he makes in that 0.8 of an acre is still a large lot, in many people's minds, and even perhaps out there. But if the neighbors were in favor, I would be okay with it, but many are not. I believe that once you pass through the gates of the estate, you've agreed to those covenants and the sizes of the lots that are there. Our staff put a great deal of time and effort into developing a scheme so it worked in the original design. So the waterfront lots were a little bit smaller, but in order to do that they would be average, that the inside lots would remain larger. And that was an agreement, I guess, that the community, both within the estates and without, were willing to agree to. I don't believe it is fair of us to come along and change that at this point. we've all had a recent experience where we thought we had an agreement. When one of the parties was contemplating a change, I think many of us felt very let down. And I think that we should not be imposing that same feeling on the people of Claddock Estates that are in opposition to this application. So I won't be supporting this at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Minions, and then Bissinger, then Minions.
Sure, thank you. I think as well, I was originally in favor of the subdivision. I think seeing the opposition from the neighbors and then just getting more history from the planning staff on the whole, how the neighborhood came to be and how even initially there was a lot of opposition to the whole development. And this was kind of, you know, everyone bought into it and had agreed upon it and has that wildlife corridor. So I think too, you know, we just had a public hearing where we had zero opposition or zero people even showing up to the public hearing except for the engineer. So I think those are the kind of subdivisions that I support, are the ones that are in those zones. So I will be voting, I guess, against this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Minions, and then McKenna.
Yeah, in principle, I didn't have a huge issue with the application, but at the time of our last meeting, I looked at the neighbors' opposition as well as my perceived, I perceived that this possibly could take a fair amount of staff and council time, in which we were told that it would be very simple, but time has told that that is not true, that it is a big enough opposition that the number of letters, calls, emails, requests to meet in person would take a fair amount of time, including future applications. So based on that rationale, I'm staying with my same. I kept an open mind and wanted to have those conversations, but I don't support the application and therefore don't support going forward with motions tonight.
Thank you, Councillor McKenna.
Yeah, well, I guess it's fair and fitting that I'm standing in opposition of all your opinions so far. I think, you know, the landscape of housing has changed, and I think it's just my opinion, but I think the time of, you know, single family housing is dying. There's nowhere to live in Comox. The prices of housing have gone astronomically through the roof. And so I am in favor of this, and I think it is our job. And I think it's fair for us to change it because that's our current job. And, you know, when this was defeated 5-6 years ago, no one could have envisioned what the housing landscape looks like today. But, you know, I am in favor of the application. I'm not tied into the story, you know, although I think it's an important story. And I think that if any of you did not have the ability to house your own children in your community in which you lived, I think you would be thinking a little bit differently. So I am in favor of this.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan.
Well, I didn't have anything prepared, but I have to, yeah, I'm with Councillor McKenna at this point. You know, in this world at this time with housing the way that it is, having an almost 2-acre lot and not allowing anything to happen with it, I think that's just not a feasible way to think about things anymore. It's unfortunate that the world has gone this way, but yeah, it's the landscapes have changed, and unfortunately, it is what it is. We need more space.
Councillor Grant, do you have your light on?
Well, I have about 5 pages here, so should I won't bore you with all of them,
Okay.
because a lot of what I had meant to say is already said. But I do think that to have a healthy community, you need varying different styles of housing, and in this particular area, it's a rural appeal that people want, and this goes back, you know, for me, 16 years ago when water was first taken out to that area. This was the first thing that I did on council. I got elected and the referendum passed out there, and it was like 49-51. It was so close. And the people that were opposed to coming into town, it was all about keeping that rural appeal and holding on to that, the Lazo area, and being able to live in that area the way it is. Many things happened, and there was a couple of different applications for subdivision that came in between that, which we turned down on every case. When Claddaugh Estates came, I think Marvin did a great job on a really tough area out there. of putting together a plan that density bonus gave lots of extra lots and yet really kept that rural appeal. And although I don't think it kept everybody super happy at the time, it was a really good compromise and it was acceptable to most. And people came back later that had opposed this and said, you know, we're pretty good with that. It works pretty good. But now here we are going, let's chop those lots up. And this is the beginning, I believe, of not just one there, but I think there'll be 2 or 3 in that area. And then I think you'll see a bunch on Simon Crescent. And then it will be the beginning of exactly what the people feared when we did this 16 years ago. So based on that, I'm going to be opposed to this as well. And, you know, I think the other thing that's happening is we aren't causing, but there is a great deal of angst out in that neighborhood. You've got neighbors fighting with neighbors and the whole thing. And by passing this, it just continues that on. I talked to Kelly right off the hop and said, if you can get the neighborhood involved and be happy with this, then I'd be good with it. I don't think it really matters whose numbers you look at. There's, you know, I always thought there was one way to count, but apparently there's 2 because we got 2 different people with 2 different sets of numbers. But it doesn't matter because there's still a lot of people out there in that neighborhood that are really opposed to this. And so I will be voting against this as well.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Swift, I saw your light on. Did you have something to say? No? Okay. Well, for myself, I'll be voting in favor of it. I know times they are changing. We're not looking at putting high density there. We're just looking at basically cutting a 2-acre lot into 1 acres and 0.8. So I still stand by that. It still allows for a lot of elbow room out in that area, and it doesn't really take away the appeal. But I think we've all heard from council, so I appreciate it. Is there any other further questions or comments on that? And we'll vote on number 1. So all in favor? All right, and opposed? So it's denied. Thank you. And then I guess that takes away number 2. No use voting on number 2. Okay, so, all right. Let me just get back onto my agenda here. And we will, sorry. What were we on, 7? 10? There we go. Okay, so planning report, PR 20-5 temporary patio and parklet program, 3rd extension. 10. Oh yeah, sorry. This thing is all jittery around for me here, so. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so.
Second.
Okay, so you want to do all 3rd. Can we do all 3 at one? Yeah, okay. All right, so we have a mover, seconder.
Sorry, where are we at?
Yeah, I had the same problem, Pat. 10A.
We're on the road closure.
Number 1, that the road allowance closure,
Yeah.
dedication, removal, 1982 be given first, second, and 3rd reading.
Okay.
So all in favor? All right. And 2, that a notice be given of council's intention for road closure and disposition of relation to bylaw 1982 with section 94 of the community charter.
Second.
Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? Okay, number 3, that a notice of council's intention for road closure and disposition as relation to bylaw 1982 be given to Hydro, Fortis, Shaw, and
Moved.
Telus. Okay, questions on that? All in favor? And number 4, the development variance permit 21-3 be issued upon resolution of the outstanding items.
Moved. Second.
Questions? All in favor? All right, thank you. So now we will go on to planning report PR 20-5 temporary patio and parklet program. This is the 3rd extension. So we have a bunch there. Number 1, the town of Comox suspends until June 1st, 2020 enforcement of.
Move A through G.
Okay,
Second.
any questions or comments on that? It's proven very successful. Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Yeah, and I don't know if we need a friendly amendment, but I said this the last time we approved this. Why don't we just approve it right through to the end of summer of 2022 and not have it come to us again one more time?
This
CAO?
timeline matches up with the approvals that the provincial government has put out, so it just ends our program when their program ends.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, because we're under the COVID, right? Okay, so any other questions, Councillor Bissinger?
Yeah,
What is
do we
it?
need
Oh,
to-
sorry.
Do we need to end the program once this whole COVID thing's over, or can we just integrate this sort of semi-permanently within our bylaws?
I think that's something that we'll have to bring up at a later date.
So, yeah, we have the ability to have permanent parklets already. It's just a different standard that businesses have to meet. Council could reduce that standard, but I would suggest that if people are going to have, or these businesses are going to be out there permanently, that the standard we have, which is similar to what you see in the grind, could be met by all the businesses. But
Okay,
that is something you can take a look at a later date.
okay. And Councillor McKenna, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment in regards to that, because it's just been so awesome to see all these patios pop up everywhere, and it just creates such an awesome, really great feel for the town of Comox. So yeah, I won't be there when it comes to you again, and I hope you're all in favor of extending it again.
Right, okay. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? All right, thank you. And number 2, that the town of Comox extend the program until June 1st, 2022, provided that,
I'll move A and B.
all right.
Second.
Any questions or comments on that? All in favor? All right, thank you. So we'll move on to short-term rental regulations and enforcement program, that the town proceed with development of a short-term rental regulation enforcement program in accordance with staff report PR 21-15 dated July
Moved.
14th. All right, any questions or comments on that? Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I'm just wanting a refresher on why we're doing this. I've kind of lost track of it, to be honest. I think it was really important at the beginning of our term, but and I think it was revolving around a shortage of housing. But I guess there was also the opportunity for licensing and so on. So if somebody could just refresh my memory on what our goal is here.
So through the CAO, maybe to Marvin? Or do
I
you want a
think-
CAO?
I think this is maybe more of a question that council can help answer than staff, because I think Councillor Swift is asking what the impetus was for council to move this forward.
Okay, so Councillor McKenna, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I think, it's aligns with our very top strategic priority with affordable housing. And I think that, we have been shown tonight by Shannon, who did her presentation, some of the damage is short-term, really short-term problems with the affordable housing component, right? And so, I think that regulating some of this short-term rental will allow the town of Comox possibly to have more housing. That was my take on why we're moving forward with it.
Right, okay. Councillor,
Yeah, go ahead.
Councillor McGowan had her hand up and then Grant.
Well, that was basically what I was going to say as well, is that we have such an issue with rentals and even trying to find a home to buy here for a reasonable price. And so looking at the short-term rentals and seeing what kind of impact they're having on rentals and the availability in town is pretty important for everybody that's trying to find housing.
Thank you, Councillor Grant, and then.
Well, so I think that, this is coming. We're going to have to deal with this sooner or later, whether we want to or not. In talking with Councillor Bissinger and Swift, I heard her say that Cumberland and Courtney are both looking at this too. And it seems to me that a program that would be more valley-wide and being the same and consistent with all the areas might be a good way to go. I don't know if they're interested in getting in cahoots with us, but I don't know why we would pay for a report and then they would just come and take it, right? When maybe they want to be involved with that at the same time. So I know in talking with the regional areas yesterday, the regional district, it was on their priority list, but I don't think the areas are super interested in it right now. And their program would be just for areas A, B, and C. So it wouldn't, they wouldn't take on the valley-wide piece. So I think that this is something that needs to be done just in a fairness thing for the hoteliers, for the housing, for any number of different reasons. You know, when I look at it, to me, it's like the restaurants, you know, and having food trucks out here and not regulating them, and the other guys are paying all the taxes and paying all the stuff. So we, you know, we took that on and did it, you know, based on about 3 food trucks. So, you know, I think this is just something that's going to come whether we like it or not, and we might as well just get on with it. If we can get the other areas involved too, even better. But that's just my take.
Great, thanks. Was there any other questions? Councillor Bissinger.
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I think we need to get on this at some point. I don't know if it's has to be right now. I guess one thing I struggle with is $43,000 for a report that I feel like there's already regulations that exist out there. I know our planning department is super taxed with other work, but I just have a hard time paying for a report that's going to tell me about, you know, a lot of fluff that I probably don't really care about, when we can get inspired by other communities that are already regulating it. I understand Tofino, Euclid do not have the exact same demographics, like they're 100% driven by tourism. So it's a bit different than us, but there's definitely a lot of bylaws that exist that we could probably start implementing, as well as the business licensing. So not that I want to do a piecemeal approach, I just kind of want to cap this study at 20K, and I think we could do that, just kind of get into the meats of it without having all the, I don't know, just phase 1 to 4 just seems like, or phase 1 to 3 plus a 1-year review just seems like a lot of fluff. You know, a lot of stuff that we probably just like, okay, cool, nice to know, don't really care, but let's get on it. So I don't know if I can make a motion or a friendly amendment to just like reduce our budget for this, or if there's you know, data that already exists that we can get inspired by.
Okay, I do see Councillor McKenna has his hand up, so I'd like to finish.
Yeah,
off.
so once again, Councillor Grant makes some great points. And so I am in agreement with him. I wonder if there's a way, instead of, you know, approving a report that might give us, I'm not going to, I don't know what Councillor Bissinger said, I didn't hear it correctly, but I think maybe there's a way for staff to go with and work with, just like we did on the climate change and the step codes. Maybe there's an opportunity for staff to all work together to create something that is valley-wide in regulatory.
Mm-hmm. Oh, CAO, go ahead.
Yeah, and I appreciate the discussion that council's having right now, because I think that's the good discussion for you guys to be having and that's what it is the money that's here worth the product you're going to get back, and is that what you're looking for? And if the answer is no, I'd suggest that maybe you defeat this motion. I've heard what council has to say. Staff will go back to the drawing board, and instead of trying to come up with a solution at the board table tonight, let us go back, reevaluate, and hear what we can bring. Because what I'm hearing from council is that you don't need a long study. You just want the regulations brought.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, so my question, I guess, would be to staff, and that would be, to me, this looks a little bit like we're, you know, we're sending this out to the private sector to give us a report rather than staff do it. And now what we're saying is we want to save money by bringing it back and making staff do it. So I'm not sure if I'm correct on that. So are we?
Yeah.
Are we creating more work for staff or less? Or and that's what my question.
You know, through this, it'll be more work for staff for sure, right? Because what we're looking at here is just paying somebody to do all the work for us. But that's where it just has to come to council, right? Because the work increases for staff doesn't mean that's the wrong thing to do. If you're looking at the other option being, you know, $40,000 to $45,000 of money that you don't think is well spent. So if you don't think that the money is well spent on this report, again, I think it would be a good idea to defeat it. Let staff go back to the drawing board. We may come back to you and say, hey, listen, we can't do this ourselves. We can't do this in the regional capacity. We either need to spend $45,000 on this or it dies. And at that point, you can make a decision. I'll say, okay, well, let's go with it or let's not. But what I'm hearing right now, maybe it's worth us taking a look at what the other options are.
Okay, I see Councillor McKenna's hand up.
Yeah, so why don't we take that $40,000 report and share it 4 ways with the other municipalities? That's all I was saying, is if it's 40 grand, everybody pays in. It's going to be one report that will say the exact same thing for every place.
Yeah,
that was my point.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Okay, yeah, we can have those discussions.
Okay.
I would defeat this and direct staff to consult regionally on consult regionally on the opportunity to bring back a region-wide short-term rental report and regulations.
Okay. All right, Councillor McGowan.
If we make the study 4 times or 3 times larger of an area, will it not be significantly more expensive as well? That's my
there would-
thought. Like, if
Yeah,
it's
there would be a
one small
significant
town,
amount of
small town.
economies of scale. Like if we make it 4 times bigger, I don't think it turns into $160,000 report. It may turn into a 60 or 70, in which we're paying 20 instead of 45. That's discussions we'd have to have with the proponent, and that's discussions we'd have to have with the other municipalities and find out where the other municipalities are. Because I saw that in the paper as well this week too, that Cumberland's moving forward with this. Maybe they're just implementing regulations based on what other communities have done, and they're not going through a study and they don't want to. And if that's what they're doing, is that what council wants to do as well? And that's something we can look at too.
Okay, so Bissinger and then McKenna.
Yeah, thank you. Just to echo what Jordan was saying, I think we should talk to Cumberland and Courtney and see what they're doing and just see if we can get on board.
McKenna, go ahead.
Yeah, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, right? So just find what, if Cumberland will give us their report and we give them $5,000, I mean, maybe it's not that easy, but it sure sounds easy to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so it seems like a pretty
Don't
good.
tell Cumberland we're giving them $5,000.
Nobody watches the live YouTube Comox, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no one's watching. Okay, so all right, so we'll
Actually, Steve is watching. Steve's probably watching.
Okay, so we do have the recommendation that the town proceed with development of the program in accordance with staff reports. So all in favor? Opposed? All right, and we had that other motion, Shelley. Were you able to get most of that?
Yeah, so it'd be that
Jordan.
staff reach out regionally to see to explore a partnership in developing a short-term rentals report and regulations.
Right, so we have a seconder. Okay. All right, any questions on that? Seeing none, all in favor? All right, thank you very much. I'm just gonna find my spot again. Okay, so we're down to reports from members of council. So I'll start with Councillor McKenna and then McGowan, Grant, Bissinger, Minions, and Swift.
Thank you. And thank you, council, for bearing with me this evening. So I was at a Community Justice Center board meeting. We finalized the hiring of the new executive director through the Vancouver Island Vancouver Island Regional Library, and met with a potential counselor for a potential upcoming by-election at a potential point in time. And also talked with a Comox resident about Cladaga Estates and also about the Becton parking, which has come to us in a letter. So to be discussed at a further meeting. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor McGowan.
That's me. I attended Food Policy Council subcommittees of the Municipal Policy and Food Hub meetings, Museum and Archives meeting. They are now open to the public on, I think, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So head on in there and check it out. And I also spoke to a variety of different community members about a variety of different things. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Grant.
Yeah, thanks. I was hoping you'd do Swift first. But anyway, I love my other book with all the notes in it. But I attended the sewer meeting yesterday at the RD where with our conveyance project, there's a possibility of having to realign the line again. What the implications of that were kind of unclear. The RD staff are saying it shouldn't be much, but I'm not 100% sure of that. So, and we'll be talking about that a bit later. We also got an update on the water plant where they've been running water through it and everything's working really well and should be rolling through the filtration by the end of August. So we should have our plant up and running very soon. And the Sports Commission, they've started a new hockey league in order to try and get more people involved in skating and sports like that. I also had a meeting with about 15 hockey teams up at the Tap House a couple of weeks ago, and this was the topic at the meeting, and it was not a good meeting in the sense that everybody was quite angry. They did take my recommendation and go and meet with staff, sat down, and between the two of them actually came up with a plan that I think now everybody's quite happy with. So I think that's worked out well, and you know, it was heading down a bad road, but I think we headed it off and got it good. And then at the regional district, there was a whole lot of stuff about the incorporation of Union Bay into the regional district. And they also did a unified AAP approach, where I think they put 17 AAPs together and put them all out, and all but, was it 2 or 3? Seven went out, sorry. And yeah, and 3 garbage ones out in the rural areas didn't pass, so they're gonna have to figure out what they wanna do. The regional district thought that was a really good approach, as did most of the board. I question it a little bit in that, you know, a lot of people that I know, and even though a lot of these didn't really affect us, looked and went, holy cow, look at that. Like, there's the process, like it's not a democratic process on some of this in some people's minds. So I don't know. I'm sort of on the fence as to whether that was the right way to go. But the 2 of the rural garbage pickup ones failed. So the RD has some work to do to figure out how they're going to deal with that issue. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bissinger.
Thanks. Attended the solid waste meeting, and there was a pretty interesting panel on demolition and construction waste. So Councillor McKenna was actually presenting on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, or I guess that with Tom Bescher. So it's pretty neat to see, and maybe there'll be some regulations coming eventually, but we're still in preliminary stages for that. Checked out the hands-on farm today, which is awesome. Town of Comox, this is great. And have a meeting next week to look over the parking issues at Beckton, and then same thing, just talk to some residents about states.
Great, thanks, Councillor Minions.
Yeah, I attended the CBRD sewage meeting yesterday with Councillor Brandt and Councillor Swift, which has been reviewed. Attended the waste management meeting with Councillor Bissinger and McKenna, and it was probably one of the best meetings in the last 2 years as far as the topic of how things could be changing in that waste management world and the different cost implications from going more of a environmental and sorting route versus just packing everything at the dump. So that was a really exciting kind of session that we had. I met with 2 interested people asking questions for the by-election, which was great. There seems to be some interest out there in that. It's getting noticed. And I had just 5 resident conversations about a variety of things, from Aspen to air quality to Beckton. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Swift.
Thank you. I attended the CBRD board meeting, which was June 29th, and I think most of that information has been passed on to you already. And then yesterday, it was the sewer, water, recreation, and the board meeting. And at the rec meeting, it was really interesting with this new league. They opened up the registration to teams, and there were 8 teams registered within 30 minutes, which is all they can accommodate at this time. 6 teams on the waiting list. So there's a real demand and over demand for ice, so continues to be popular. And the low income pass that we debated about quite some time ago, they're still working on it. So it's a lot more involved than you might imagine. At the board meeting, we had a presentation from the Youth Climate Council, and they have a Green New Deal, which they're very keen to have all governments implement. And other than that, it's all been covered by Councillor Grant. And thank you.
Okay, Ken, next time we'll have Maureen first. Okay, all right. So, yeah. Yeah, so for myself, had restarted the leaders lunch last week. That was with the local mayors, the chair, Chief Rempel, and the new wing commander, Bryn Elliott. It was a good discussion, more or less just get to know the wing commander. We had the last EOC meeting as the EOC winds down from the COVID related issues that it's been working for the last year and a bit, and that was a good program that was helpful to get us information and get out to the community about what's happening. The WestJet restart, I had that Zoom a couple weeks ago, and that was just WestJet had some stakeholders. They were talking about their way forward, and it's looking good. WestJet is stuck through the community here, and they're hoping to have more flights this fall. The CEO and I met with the Comox Bay Sailing Club in the chambers here, just chatted about some of their wants and needs as they grow. COVID has really brought up a big push in their attendance of people wanting to participate. As mentioned, I went to the Romaines house there on the corner of Church and Buena Vista, had a good chat with them and heard them. You may have read today, there was a letter to the editor, somebody who's complaining about the traffic and told Comox to get off our butts and start earning our salary. So I figured I'd give the fellow a call and had a really good chat with him. He was a really nice man, and he's just frustrated, like many of us in the community, listening to these cars race up and down, the speed, the noise. It is getting to be a big problem. We talked about that at the leaders' lunch, and all the communities are having the same issue with these loud cars racing around. And so, yeah, he was thankful that I reached out to him. And just been walking through the park here, talking with families as they've taken some of their activities and seeing what they like about the marina and the town. And there's a lot of new people here, visitors, and so things are starting to feel good. That is all that I have, and so we will need a resolution to go in camera. What am I? Oh yeah, geez, sorry. Okay, so the reason, Hal had a bit of a jammer there. Yeah, no, sorry. Who wants to get out of here? Me. So the rezoning application RZ 18-10 and be given third reading. Oh,
Second.
any questions or comments on that? Councillor.
Are we doing third reading and adoption, or is third reading and then adoption another day, or? I just don't remember.
CAO or Marvin, what are we?
There's outstanding items, registration of the covenant, so third reading, and then resolution of outstanding items, and we'll bring it back for adoption.
Just third reading then. Any other questions? All in favor? Great, thank you. All right, I think I'm safe to move to resolution to go. I'm looking at two agendas here, so.
Second.
Yeah, so and this is related to discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service. So all in favor? All right, Pat, okay, thank you. So this